Welcome back. Now we got a piece of testimony here. Trevor's saying, thinking back, that he realized that he never actually saw the professor at all. But the only thing I can think of is this contradicts with the article here in the Daily Circus, a newspaper article recounting the tale of an eyewitness to the alleged resurrection of the professor from his grave on the night of his execution. You can see there, it's like he's looking at him. And if we can somehow roundabout through this, get to the point that the camera would have proved that you did see him, that there is definite evidence, because it was noted the slide was gone from the camera that we got. So where's the slide? And there's a dark stain on the bellows as well, which means the bellows were out, which means it probably took a picture. Probably has the face of the professor in that picture. But anyway, let's very much present this 10-year-old article.
Objection!
Just so many thoughts at the moment. It's trying to collect. It's very, very crazy, this one. So just trying to collect my thoughts is what I'm doing. Sorry, Mr. Trevor, but I don't believe that. Don't believe what? Your latest claim. You did see the professor on the night 10 years ago. Oh dear. We seem to be at odds. But I was there, and you were not. I know what I didn't see. The illustration within this article was drawn based upon what you told the journalist that you witnessed. A figure emerging from a tomb, wearing an iron mask. Yes, when the killer was tried 10 years ago, it was decided in the closed court's ruling that the man would wear the mask to hide his identity. It wasn't to be removed even during his execution and subsequent burial. Not even the prison wardens were to see the man's face. But obviously, the provisions of this mask was not public knowledge. So, Mr. Jabba, as you just heard, a lowly student of the University of London certainly wouldn't have known about the condemned man's mask. So unless you'd actually seen the professor that night, it's inconceivable that the artist would have included the mask in that illustration. I hadn't considered that, to be honest. I was just thinking it's a contradiction, the fact it's got a picture of a face, which means you did see him. So that was based on what you told him, so yeah. But yeah, I hadn't considered the iron mask would have been a secret, wouldn't it? Order. Well, Mr. Drebber. It's a vile scene, isn't it? If you look closely. And as I've already at pains to point out, I was utterly petrified. Which is why I had it in my head that I'd seen such a blood-curdling sight. But afterwards, I came to my senses and realized that I'd been mistaken. You're still saying you didn't see it? If you're stubbornly sticking to that story, witness, then amend your testimony to explain exactly how you think your eyes deceived you. Of course. Only too happy to oblige. Can't believe he's still not going to concede the point. What I in fact witnessed was a fellow grave robber at work. Okay, well we need to press on that to learn more about that, don't we? A fellow grave robber? What are you talking about? Well, I wasn't the only one busy in the cemetery that night, you know. Other body snatchers were at work. Of course, when I was seeing one emerge from the hole he dug, my heart very nearly stopped. So that's the terrifying sight I actually saw, you see. You're claiming it was just another student unequally insalubrious? Business as yourself? Many of their medical students would wear metal masks to protect them from bacteria during dissections. Clearly, the fellow was using such a mask to protect his anonymity, wouldn't you say?
Objection!
No, I wouldn't say that. But there's more to the story, isn't there? The article goes on to say, in the next second, a gunshot rang out, suddenly from behind. The bullet pierced the resurrected man's chest, whose breath then stilled once more. You might assume that the sexton discovered the miscreant at work, perhaps, and fired upon one of them. If a gravedigger had shot someone in the cemetery, I think it might have been rather big news, my lord. Ah, yes, well. I can only assume it was an embellishment bolted on later by the reporter. Okay.
Excuse me.
Madame Tuspels. Don't take it out on Mr. Schlomes. Jap, 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 jap. Oh la la, pardon. And such. I was lost in my thoughts. Would it be fair to say that Mr. Drebber's last remark was significant to you in some way? I thought it was a little strange, that is all. How Monsieur Drebber could claim this now? If you don't mind me saying, madam, what are you talking about? Well, when I met you 10 years ago at your university dormitory, you recounted to me about your adventures in the cemetery, no? Including the gunshot. Stop. You might want to watch your tongue, you know.
Objection!
Have a care, Drebber. That's no way to speak to a lady. Grr. Please, Madame Tuspels. Carry on. Of course. According to what Monsieur Drebber told me at the time, he did hear a gunshot from behind and the bullet hit the condemned man. I said nothing of the sort. No, you were very explicit about the details. About the mask that the figure was wearing. And the blood that splattered over you when he was shot. Enough! Shut up, woman! You're making all this up. That will do. Mr. Drebber. Yes? You refute the account just given by Madame Tuspels? I have no recollection of ever saying those things. Come on, do you really expect us to control yourself, counsel? I will not permit baseless accusations in my courtroom. Right. Under the circumstances, I think it best that you supplement your testimony with a statement to clarify your position on this witness. Very well. Even he's not having it. There was no gunshot from behind me at all, nor any splattering blood. Hold on a minute, mate. Hold on, I can refute that. I'm going to present it now. I'm just going to present it.
Objection!
Mr. Drebber, do you remember this camera? But that is the camera from the fateful night. Yes, we, borrowed it from the House of Arrears. It's the camera you took with you to the cemetery that night, Mr. Drebber. And is that supposed to be significant? This kind of camera is rarely seen in our homeland, so my colleague and I were keen to examine it closely. We noticed that the lens extends forward on the end of some bellows. Like this.
Hold it!
What's that? There, just on the bellows. It looks like a dark red stain. Ah. That's right. It's a rather conspicuous mark here on the bellows, in fact. Good lord. Are you suggesting? Yes, my lord. It would appear to be a spatter of blood. Something that could be confirmed with a simple chemical test. Isn't that right, Dr. Scythe? Wait, what? What's happening? It would be difficult to determine if it was human blood, and not the blood of some animal. But yes, to test whether or not it's blood is simple enough. I propose that Madame Tuspel's testimony was correct. And on the night in question 10 years ago, you were spattered with blood from the gunshot wound. Well, And that furthermore, you really did witness the condemned professors emerging from the tomb. Gar. Oh, there's some blood everywhere. There is simply no way you could have forgotten such a traumatic experience. Depends how traumatic it was. It could have given him amnesia in some regard. In other words, the only explanation, I mean, it didn't, but it could have, is that you're trying to hide the fact that you saw the professor that night.
Objection!
But why? Why would he want to do that? Well, not for his own game, it would seem. For whose, then? Who could it benefit? Who could it benefit? Mr. Trevor is obviously lying in order to protect somebody. Oh. Okay. My goodness. He's shielding someone. Yes, my lord. And clearly, it's the only thing that makes sense in this is like, who we've implicated previously. It's someone who doesn't want the truth about the professor coming back to life to be exposed. Indeed. Well, counsel, who is it then? Someone who did a coroner report. Who is this witness trying to protect by lying about what he saw that night? Boom.
Take that!
The obvious answer is Dr. Scythe. Scythe? Whatever do you mean? Imagine if the convict who had been sentenced to death was not in fact killed. Imagine if that was to come to light. What are you insinuating? And imagine if the convict in question was the country's most hated mass murderer. If it was the professor, that would be an unprecedented scandal.
Objection!
This is beyond a joke. Need I point out that the dead cannot come back to life? What you're suggesting would mean that the execution never actually happened. Yes, that's exactly what it would mean.
Objection!
Once a man is sent to the gallows, he hangs. No one could escape, not in Great Britain.
Objection!
But the fact is, there was a witness to the fact that the man did escape his hanging. If that were really true, counsel, the implications of misconduct would not stop at the supervising coroner. It would taint the honor of the entire judiciary, from the ground up. And it's exactly because of those monumental repercussions that Dr. Scythe would consent to any demand made of her by someone who threatened to expose the secret, even if that meant being complicit in a crime. You mean? I mean that Dr. Scythe wasn't collaborating in Mr. Drebber's wicked scheme. She was coerced into collaborating in order to protect her decade-old secret. She switched the dead body of Mr. Asman with the waxwork model and fabricated the autopsy report. What? Oh my, it calls a lot into question, doesn't it? Yes. What the bloody hell? Lord Van Zykes? Pray forgive my freshly filled hallowed chalice, and a whole raft of other discourtesies now. Goodness me. It's just the sort of tall tale Londoners would enjoy, I grant you. An executed killer rising from the dead, a Scotland Yard cover-up, a conspiracy at the highest levels. So let me ask you one thing. What's that? If the condemned man really did emerge from his tomb that night, only to be shot in the chest, who pulled the trigger? And disposed of him forever? I have no idea at the moment. What, you don't? Okay. We have too little information to work that out at present, I think. Signature, guys. Are you not? Okay. Fine. We'll carry on. We'll pretend we didn't know. We have too little information to work that out at the present, I think. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. The Old Bailey is no place for wild fantasies. And have you considered this, my learned Nipponese friend? Considering what? Do you realize just what a dangerous endeavor it would be to coerce this woman to such criminal activity? It's tantamount to declaring war on the entire British police force and judiciary. Quite. Hard to imagine any sum of money being offered for research could warrant it. To rely on some staged deception when so much is at stake would be madness. Well, I suppose. And this was no petty crime either. The victim was murdered. A man who'd already invested money in the venture, and would be instrumental in future profits too. Yes, I had no reason to kill Mr. Asman at all. Or are you forgetting that his death results in me not receiving a single penny? The court is already aware of the contract between myself and the victim. No? Yes, there's something else going on. There is the contract, that's very true. The motive for this case runs deep, though. I can feel it in my bones. Using threats to force the head of the forensic investigation team to cooperate is extreme. Especially for a government grant he had no guarantee of receiving in the first place. If the research grant was the aim, taking Mr. Asman's life would have made no sense anyway. Which means Mr. Drebber's motive wasn't money at all. He was just trying to kill Mr. Asman. But why? What was his motive then? Your time is up, my learned friend. I'd say you have one last chance before the jury loses their patience with this charade. Shall I? Let's see if you can back up your heady proposal, shall we? Just how he dodges out of the way. How do you explain why this engineer would throw all caution to the wind and threaten his own country? At this point, I am not prepared to listen to more of this outlandish conjecture without proof. So, counsel, present your evidence. What? Alright, who exactly was Mr. Asman to Drebber? There's a connection there that no one's seen yet. And I am going to have to present two pieces of evidence to show what it is. The signatures, then? Yes, my lord. The evidence that establishes a motive and explains why the witness wanted the victim dead is right here.
Take that!
It's this newspaper article, my lord. That was written 10 years ago, and every detail has been examined already. What can it possibly tell us? That drivel should never have been written. It's typical gutter press nonsense that means nothing. Yes, on its own, it isn't particularly significant, however. When considered alongside another piece of evidence, it will completely explain your motive for wanting Mr. Asman dead. What other evidence? Counsel, you will present your supplementary evidence without delay. The evidence, which when cross-referenced with the newspaper article, establishes a motive for the deed. Contract. It's the signature. It's gotta be.
That!
It's this contract, my lord. Mr. Drebber, this is the contract you signed with Mr. Asman. Yes, that's right. The very document, in fact. That proves I had no reason to kill the man. No, I'm afraid not. But there's something very significant that this newspaper article and the contract have in common. Really? Really? And it's that common link that shows very clearly why you were determined to kill Mr. Ollie Osman. It seems the defense has uncovered something the rest of us have missed. So, my learned friend, point out what these two pieces of evidence have in common. Where exactly is this link between this newspaper article and the contract? Well, you seriously can't tell me? You're telling me you can't see it? All right.
Take that!
What these two pieces of evidence have in common is a signature. A signature? The signature of the illustration that accompanies the 10-year-old article and the signature on the contract belong to the same person. What? As the court has heard, the illustration was drawn 10 years ago by the newspaper reporter who found Mr. Drebber and interviewed him about his ordeal. If you look closely, the reporter's signature can be seen in the bottom right corner of the drawing. And if you look at the contract here, which was signed between the witness and the victim last year, you can clearly see Mr. Asman's signature at the bottom. Let me see now. Oh, good lord, yes, they're identical. In short, the journalist who drew the illustration and wrote the article published about Mr. Drebber 10 years ago was the victim of this case, Mr. Ollie Osman. Something like that, anyway.
Objection.
How do you object to that? But explain to the court why. Why would that constitute a motive for the witness to murder Asman? Well, if you think back, you'll remember that Mr. Drebber talked about that article in his testimony. Grave robbing, you say? Yes, exhuming fresh corpses to sell is reasonably lucrative. That is quite beyond the pale. You would invite divine retribution, sir. Yes, well, I think I suffered retribution enough. The Daily Circus eventually unearthed my name and put it to print. It caused me a great deal, many headaches. In the end, I had to leave the university. So it's revenge, just revenge. That was the only paper with the bad grace to identify me unambiguously, I might add. Then I gave up on my dream of becoming a scientist, and it was all because of that newspaper article. Yeah, it's revenge. But this is only like scratching the surface of some kind of Pandora's box, remember? At the time, you were a student of the University of London who dreamt of becoming a scientist. However, this single newspaper article changed your entire life. So, Mr. Asman used to be a newspaper journalist, did he? He did, my lord. In fact, it's a widely held belief that Asman managed to position himself at the heart of his criminal network, thanks to the many dubious connections he made during his time as a reporter. Yeah, makes sense. So you had to give up on your dream and leave university. You lost everything. Eventually you found yourself working in the field of science, but only in the shadows. And all because of that article, written by Mr. Asman. Enough! stop this endless drivel about my life. What? Explain yourself, Mr. Drebber. Yes, it's true. I had to leave the university as a result of that article. But it was just the straw that broke the camel's back. What do you mean? Almost every student of science in the faculty was too poor to actually conduct any research. But they struggled on with their hypotheses anyway. We all did, only to have them taken by vultures. Sooner or later, you knew your ideas would be stolen and patented by some wretch or other. After all. Good gracious. Making a name for yourself as a scientist in a climate like that was a miracle only a select few geniuses could ever hope to achieve. Personally, I wasn't one of those geniuses, so it was hardly a wrench. Being forced out of university because of Lowgate was the best thing that could have happened to me.
Objection!
Mr. Drebber, do you genuinely believe that? Of course I do. Who's better placed to know whether or not I possess a talent for science than me? I'm sorry to say that your words don't ring true at all. How dare you? And I have evidence to prove it. How are you in a position to say anything about me? I don't know you from Adam. Fine, if you think you have evidence, go ahead, show it. What could you possibly have to disprove the idea that I was happy to leave university because I lacked talent? Your science trophy, mate.
Take that!
Do you remember this, Mr. Drebber? We found it at your workshop. Is that Royal Society Trophy for Excellence in Science? What exactly is this trophy, Council? It's the greatest honor that can be bestowed upon a young scientist, my lord. There is no higher accolade. It recognizes emerging talent and promises a bright future. Good gracious! Your prospects of the future were excellent, weren't they, Mr. Drebber? Because even then, you were a genius in your field. But you lost everything. You had no more future. Your talents would go to waste. All as a result of this newspaper article. I don't know when you realized who Mr. Asman was, but when it dawned on you that he was the same journalist who 10 years ago ruined your life, it's abundantly clear that you had no intention of forgiving the man. Yeah, come on, mate, we got you now. The truth is, finally he's going to fold. But, this opens up Pandora's box. Hold it. From who? So close. Fine. Clearly this has run its course now. Oh, here we go. What? I admit it. All of it. What? What are you doing? It's exactly as the Japanese man said. I was coerced into going along with this man's plot to murder the victim, on the condition that he kept my dirty secret from 10 years ago. No. Good Lord! By Jove! Dr. Scythe, do you realize what you're saying, woman? It's all true. That day, when I arrived at the Crystal Tower and saw the birdcage, my heart nearly stopped beating. That memory from a decade ago that I'd done... there's a letter there, clearly. That memory from a decade ago that I'd done my best to bury deep inside myself. It was the professor again, staring me in the face. And then, before I had a chance to react, I noticed something else. There was a note tucked inside the model's jacket. Dr. Sive, you will go along with my plan. From someone who knows the truth about what really happened that night 10 years ago. All the instructions were there in the note. Every detail was meticulously written out. I had no choice but to do what it said. I made the necessary alterations to the scene and fabricated the autopsy report as instructed. And there was really no other choice. It had to be done to protect the judiciary. I can only apologize now. Why on earth would you buckle now? Well, there's no point trying to hide it anymore, is there? I would have done anything to stop it coming out, even collaborate in murder. But the great lie about the execution 10 years ago has been exposed. Whatever happens, I'm finished. So then, Mr. Drebber, what do you say to that? Your accomplice has admitted everything. Surely it goes without saying. You admit your part in it too, then? I admit nothing. At all, really. Where? Have you forgotten that the kinesis machine was ripped to shreds by an explosion? Short of me admitting to a crime, there's really no possible way for you to prove I did anything wrong. No. It's quiet. It's innocent. Let him go, yes. Oda, oda, oda. Whatever this man says, I admit everything. He threatened to expose my secret, so I went along with his plan. And Lord Van Zykes? Yes. I hope you'll accept my apologies. What happens next is in your hands, of course. Pandora's box. I've heard more than enough now. I hereby present the final findings of this court. Wait, hold on. This trial is not the proper forum in which to pursue the alleged wrongdoings of Mr. Drebber. The defendant is Professor Albert Harebrain. Very true. It had slipped my mind. Isn't he one of your closest friends? As the court has heard, Dr. Sive has admitted to the allegations brought by the defense, thereby absolving the defendant of any possible guilt. We won, Mr. Naruhodo! You mean? At the present time, it is the conclusion of this court that the defendant was not involved in any wrongdoing. Does the prosecution have any objection? Yeah! Let's open Pandora's box, mate! Open it! Open it! He's gonna let us choose. None, my lord. It's like he's leaving it up to me, isn't he? Oh, congratulations, Mr. Naruhodo. You've proven Professor Harebrain's innocence. Without further ado, then, the adjudication. Unless the prosecution or defense have any other matters to discuss. We do. We do. I don't know. This doesn't feel quite right. Why did Dr. Sive suddenly admit to it like that? Is everything alright, Mr. Naruhodo? Like you said before, the way the trial is set to end now, the judge will certainly deliver a verdict of not guilty. We'll win. But is that really what we want? What the defense should be pushing for now is further testimony. The defense objects to the trial ending at this time, my lord. I beg your pardon? We demand one final testimony. What? By Jove, yes, by Jove, yes. You do realize I'm about to adjudicate in favor of your client, I presume? What are you playing at now, my Nipponese friend? Why would you want to obstruct the conclusion of the trial at this point? No defense lawyer in his right mind would do that. Mr. Naruhodo, what exactly are you thinking? The truth. The whole truth. And a way to bring it all out into the open. Right. Yes, in hindsight. Ah yes, one word of warning before I go. If, in the course of the trial this afternoon, you perceive even a shadow of doubt about the truth, don't let it out of your sight. Pursue it like a dog with a bone. To the bitter end, you understand. Do not falter, whatever may come to pass. I'm sure Mr. Shlomes knew. He must have deduced that this would happen. Yes, I'm here in court to advocate for my client, and to secure an acquittal. Obviously. But that's not all. I believe that I have a duty to the court, to pursue the whole truth of the case, until every last detail is laid bare. And that is why the defense calls for further testimony from Dr. Scythe. Testimony from me? About what? About the nature of your collaboration with Mr. Enoch Drebber. Huh. In case it's escaped your attention, I've already admitted to everything I did. The whole truth has already been revealed. So stop wasting everyone's time. As his lordship made very plain, your client will get the acquittal you wanted for him. There's simply no point protracting the business further with another tedious cross-examination.
Objection!
Here we go. Pray forgive my careless handling of that hallowed bottle. I slipped. Yes, slipped. Fuck you. That's what you call it? What is your objection, Lord Van Zykes? The prosecution also calls for supplementary testimony from the witness. Don't be stupid. If there is more to this case than has yet to come to light, then I will join my learned friend in pursuing the facts until the bitter end. You'll what? Lord Van Zykes? This is most irregular, to say the least. However, as the prosecution also calls for it, I will uphold the request. Dr. Scythe, you will testify for the court, explaining the full extent of your involvement in the murder apparently committed by Mr. Drebber. Very well.